As long as she give me my house and my son, she can have anything else she wanted.
Julie Ann Stewart was born on January 22, 1976, in Moline, Illinois, to parents William and Diane. At some point, her family relocated to Jacksonville, Florida, and in 1994, she graduated from Sandalwood High School. Julie was described as an outgoing and friendly individual who had a natural ability for connecting with people and making friends wherever she went. In 1998, she married Gerard Stewart and soon became a stay-at-home mother. She was very involved in her son's life, often volunteering with the PTA and helping chaperone school events. However, by 2018, the marriage to Gerard had fallen apart, and in April of that year, she filed for divorce. While some were skeptical, she made it clear that she already had a plan in place and fully intended to move forward with the separation. Tragically, she would never get the independence she so desperately sought. On June 15, 2018, Gerard shocked a neighbor when he began to tell a wild story about allegedly stabbing Julie inside their home earlier that day. It was so shocking that the neighbor immediately called the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. When officers arrived, they found Gerard pulling his car out of the garage, and when he noticed the officers, he stopped, rushed back inside, and then refused to come out. A 3-hour standoff then followed, involving the SWAT team. During that time, Stewart tried to take his own life by ingesting a large amount of pills, but it didn't work. Thankfully, officers were able to rescue the couple's 9-year-old son from the home unharmed. Stewart emerged not long after and was quickly taken into custody. That's when officers discovered that Gerard was telling the truth. He had, in fact, stabbed his wife to death. While he told officers he had stabbed her 2 to 3 times, an autopsy later revealed she had actually been stabbed 13 times, including a fatal wound to her throat. He went on to say that he murdered her because she was going to take everything from him in the divorce, including their son.
I know whatever's happened in the past, we can work on our marriage.
Yeah.
And I begged her every single day. As long as she give me my house and my son, she can have anything else she wanted. Because she started naming all the stuff she wanted, and I said, fine, you can have it all. I'm fine, but don't try to take my son from me.
He said that after she was dead, he wrapped her body in trash bags secured with tape and placed her in the trunk of his car in an attempt to conceal what he had done. Since they could prove he knew about Julie's plans to leave him for several days before the murder, they charged him with first-degree murder. Unfortunately, the jury failed to reach a unanimous verdict, and he later pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. He was also found guilty of tampering with evidence based on his own admissions and actions after the murder. In the end, he was sentenced to 40 years in prison. Kenneth Eugene Bunn, who everyone called Kenny, was born on Father's Day, June 14, 1992, to Trina Wilson and Jeffrey Bunn. Unfortunately, Kenny's troubles began when he was about 9 years old. In middle school, he started getting bullied, which made him dread going to school. He was also dealing with abuse from his ex-stepdad, who had threatened him not to say anything to his mothers or siblings, so Kenny kept it to himself. Over time, the abuse and bullying led to severe anxiety and depression, which continued to get worse until 2014, when he got a job at Atlanta Structural. His job required him to hang over the side of buildings to patch holes in concrete panels. It was a job he loved, and he was good at it. Because of how well he was doing now, his mom helped him buy his dream car, a 2012 Mustang. According to his family, Kenny loved to make people laugh and never judged anyone. This was mainly because he was judged for dressing emo, often seen wearing darker clothes, lip rings, black eyeliner, and black nail polish. You wouldn't know it by looking at him, but he loved pulling silly pranks on people and leaving positive voice messages on friends' phones to brighten their day. In 2015, he met a girl named Nicole, moved her in with him and his mother, Triana, in Crandall, Georgia, while they looked for a place of their own. Unfortunately, they began to experiment with drugs, which led him to sell his Mustang for some much-needed cash. By the end of 2018, they realized the only way to get sober and get their lives back on track was to break up. So he moved in with his grandmother, Sarah Calvert, who went by Pat and whom Kenny affectionately referred to as Meemaw, and spent most of 2019 single and focused on work. That is, until August of that year, when he met Nadia Swartz on Facebook, and by October, he had moved her in with him and his grandmother in Dalton, Georgia. Tragically, within a few months of meeting Nadia, Kenny would be dead. Their relationship was over just as quickly as it began, and within 3 months, she had already moved out and was now dating a man named Justin Hooker. But she wasn't exactly done with Kenny and began a world of lies and manipulation that were all too convincing for Justin. She told him that Kenny had been abusive to her during the relationship and wouldn't stop threatening to kill her. By early 2020, Justin's hate and jealousy of Kenny had spiraled out of control, and on more than one occasion, he threatened to blow Kenny's head off. Then, out of the blue, on March 15th, Nadia reached out to Kenny and expressed a desire to rekindle their relationship. The following day, on March 16th, Triana came by to pick up Kenny to take him to a very important job-related appointment. However, when she arrived at her mother's home, she learned that Kenny had left with Nadia the night before and had not returned. So she messaged Nadia but received a vague response that said she and Kenny got into an argument and he got out of her car and she hadn't seen him since. This immediately concerned his mom, who felt something was seriously off. Unfortunately, all attempts to locate Kenny were unsuccessful, and at 4 p.m. that day, Pat called the police and reported him missing. At the same exact time, fishermen found a body at the Carlton Petty Bridge.
All right, yeah, I think we've run up on a dead body.
You think you've run up on a dead body?
Yeah, if you're on the trail, there's a body laying there who's not responding. I mean, what should I do?
Do you see his chest moving at all?
No, there's blood. There's no pulse. He's like really pale.
All right, so just stay right there, okay? I got EMS, fire department, and law enforcement on the way.
The news of the body quickly spread on social media, and it wasn't long before Triana saw it. Her heart sank immediately because this was a spot Kenny was known to frequent. Believing this was her son, she called the police and provided them with photos of Kenny and his tattoos. While their suspicions were sadly correct, they wouldn't know the truth until March 20th, when the sheriff's office made their official confirmation. Kenny had been tragically shot once in the chest and 3 times in the head. That same day, his family also learned that the suspects were already in custody and was shocked to find out that it was Nadia and her new boyfriend, Justin.
I mean, he might. I mean, I'm a biter.
Biter?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Trust me, he knows.
So, do y'all know what we're going to talk about?
I'm not sure.
Well, what do you think we're going to talk about?
Last night,
Well, I had to go take Michael's. He had a friend over here. I went across the bridge last night, taking his buddy home.
Mhm.
I assumed there was something going on over there.
Mhm.
Don't know what it is, but I assume that might be what you're over here for.
Yeah.
I just seen that there was a crime scene there because I had to go across the bridge, take him home. I had to come back, but I have no idea what it's about.
Okay. Yeah, it is about the bridge. So, it's about Kenny. You know Kenny? How do you know Kenny?
He's my ex,
Okay.
and the relationship wasn't the best. He got me on stuff. He kept yelling at me about stuff, and
Meth is what he got her on.
Got her mad.
I'm off and out.
She's off and out.
It's hard to do. That's an accomplishment in itself.
She did it on her own too.
With the help of him. If it wasn't for him, I would have never left.
When's the last time you and Kenny talked?
Last time me and him talked was I wanted to ask him something, So I went over there Saturday just so I could say, because I want to know why he treated me the way he treated me, because he had a knife to my leg and said if I left, he'll cut it off. Had a knife to my dog's neck and said if she don't stop chewing stuff up, she was going to slit her neck. I want to know why he was so mean to both of us. Got to the point where my dog would hide underneath the bed. I got to the point where there was a couple of times where we had this dog kennel for Outlaw so we could potty train her better, the way my mom did Cleo and Gizmo. There's times where he'll basically lock me up in the kennel and said, if you leave, I'm going to bash your head in.
So you're saying Saturday you went to his house? Is that on Sonia Drive?
Yeah, I went to his so I could ask. I just want to know why he treated me that way.
Okay.
Because it hurts. Like I can't. Those memories are not going to go away. The fear I had and everything that I went through, and I just want to know why. And why he said he didn't mean it. He was still messed up on it to the point where he wasn't thinking about anybody else. He was thinking about his next fix. That's what all he was thinking about was his next fix.
Was he still using?
I don't know. His mom says he's not, but again, he lies to her all the time, and he got to the point where he's been lying to me. So I really don't know.
How did he get his money for his?
I worked my butt off every single day, and he would yell at me when I get money. He's like, he would be like so mad at me if I don't get his next fix. So I went and got it so he could just not yell at me anymore.
Okay.
But I dropped him off at a gas station, and he got mad at me for, I forgot what I said. I don't remember what exactly I said, but something I said ticked him off, and he said, pull over, I want to walk. So that's what I did. I pulled over, he got out of the car and started walking. I felt bad because I didn't want him walking from the gas station all the way back to Pass, and I said, hey, can you just get back in the car, I'll drive you back over there. He's like, no, I'm not getting in that car with you. So I said, are you sure? He's like, yeah, I'm sure. I don't want to be around you anymore. So I just drove off.
Apparently, 3 days before the murder, on March 13th, Kenny had finally had enough of Nadia's games and told her to stop coming to see him. This angered Nadia, who went home and convinced Justin they needed Kenny out of their lives, and the only way to accomplish that was murder. So they came up with the plan to lure Kenny with the illusion that Nadia wanted to get back together. That same day, they went and bought a gun from Justin's cousin. Then on March 15th, she spent the day trying to get in touch with Kenny and was finally successful. After telling him she wanted to get back together, he agreed to meet, and she picked him up later that day near his grandmother's home at Harry's convenience store. Surveillance cameras captured them together at the store, talking, before Kenny got into her car and they drove off. She then drove the 18 miles to the Carlton Petty Bridge that runs over the Conesaga River in Crandall, Georgia, less than a mile from Triana's home. At 9:22 p.m. on March 15th, Justin shot Kenny to death, and Triana happened to hear every single shot, unaware that she was listening to the murder of her own son. We know the exact time because Triana happened to check the clock in her home the moment she heard the gunshots. Both Nadia and Justin were charged with malice murder and possession of a firearm during the commission of a crime. Based on evidence and testimony from people who knew Nadia, they said she was obsessed with dark romantic fantasy, and while she never pulled the trigger, she was ultimately the mastermind. In the end, both Nadia and Justin pleaded guilty and were sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years, which would put their first eligibility in the year 2050.
As soon as I saw the blood, that's when I realized something wasn't right.
Rachel Castillo was born in the late 90s and graduated from Reyna High School in Thousand Oaks, California. She then received a full scholarship to UC Santa Cruz, where she studied psychology. She always had a desire to help people and eventually took a job working for a social service nonprofit organization. By the age of 25, Rachel was living at her sister Emily Castillo's apartment in Simi Valley, California, with her 2 young sons, ages 2 and 5. Her family described her as a devoted mother and a real go-getter who wasn't afraid of hard work. From an early age, she was determined to be better than everyone around her and had even learned to ride a bike before her 2 siblings. By late 2022, she and her husband, Zarbab Ali, were nearing the final stages of their divorce when a horrible tragedy occurred. Around 8:30 p.m. on November 10, 2022, Emily returned to the apartment and immediately noticed a significant amount of blood in multiple areas. And with no sign of Rachel, she quickly called 911. Rachel's car was found parked in its usual spot outside, and her cell phone, car keys, and wallet were found inside. When officers arrived and saw how much blood was in the apartment, they knew right away that a crime involving a serious injury had occurred. Investigators immediately began looking into Ali after witnesses reported seeing him at the apartment that morning when he picked up his sons. For the next 2 days, detectives tracked his digital footprint using cell phone and license plate data and discovered that he had purchased a shovel and a knife shortly before Rachel disappeared. On the 3rd day, November 13, 2022, using Ali's location data, they searched an area near Little Rock, California, and discovered vehicle tracks that stretched for approximately 70 yards into the desert and an area of disturbed soil at the end. 20 yards further, investigators found the shovel Ali had bought. When the disturbed soil was removed, they sadly found Rachel's remains. Later that same day, Ali was arrested as he was leaving his parents' home in Victorville and charged with Rachel's murder. Investigators had learned that on the day she went missing, he'd picked up the boys and taken them to his parents' home in Victorville. After dropping them off, he returned to Simi Valley, entered Emily's apartment through an unlocked front door, turned off the lights, and waited in a dark hallway for Rachel to come out of a bedroom. When she did, he attacked her with a knife, stabbing her a total of 11 times in the neck and chest. He then wrapped her body in a blanket, attempted to clean up the crime scene, and then placed her body in his trunk. He then drove to the remote desert area near Little Rock in the Antelope Valley and buried her remains in a shallow grave he dug with the newly purchased shovel. Afterward, he returned to his parents' home where the children were staying. If this case wasn't already shocking enough, at approximately 2 a.m. the following morning, Ali left the house again and drove back to the burial site. According to his own confession, he said that he unearthed Rachel's body and sexually assaulted her remains before burying her again. In the end, he pleaded guilty to felony sexual contact with human remains, but took the first-degree murder charge to trial. In November 2025, a jury found him guilty of murder and also tacked on a special circumstance that says the murder was committed by means of lying in wait and that a knife was used in the attack. According to California law, first-degree murder convictions with a lying-in-wait special circumstance carry a mandatory life in prison sentence without the possibility of parole, and that's exactly what he got. Tracy Lee Lechner was born on May 10, 1980, and by the age of 42 was a mother of 2 young children, a son and a daughter. She had become a successful lawyer who ran her own law firm in Denver, Colorado, and while she often worked late, she remained devoted to her children, who were ages 7 and 9. She loved spending time outdoors with them and also made time to help with their schoolwork. In early 2023, she and her husband, David Samuel Lechner, were in the process of getting a divorce, and it was set to be finalized on March 31, 2023. However, one day before that, a horrible tragedy occurred. On the morning of March 30th, David showed up at Tracy's home in the Hills West neighborhood of Cherry Creek to convince her to stop the divorce proceedings. An argument quickly erupted inside the open garage and ended with Tracy being shot 3 times. David then got back into his car and fled the scene. A neighbor quickly followed David in their own vehicle after witnessing him standing over Tracy in the garage and pulling the trigger at point-blank range. In an attempt to stop him, the witness deliberately crashed into David's car and successfully prevented him from escaping in his vehicle. He was eventually taken into custody near East Orchard Road and South Haven Street, but instead of going to jail, was taken to the hospital after officers discovered multiple stab wounds on his body. It's assumed those wounds were self-inflicted. Meanwhile, officers arrived at Tracy's house and sadly found her dead on the floor in the garage. Once David was medically cleared, he was booked and charged with Tracy's murder. Evidence showed that he had meticulously planned it out, even purchasing a getaway car using a fake name and paying cash. He also bought a GPS tracking device, gloves, zip ties, and duct tape. Before the crime, he packed a go bag with $10,000 in cash, a passport, and multiple credit cards. It's suspected that he wanted her dead so he could get sole custody of the children. In the end, a jury found David guilty of first-degree murder, attempted kidnapping, and use of a stun gun. During sentencing, Tracy's children delivered heartbreaking victim impact statements. Her son called his father, and I quote, "the monster of my life." He continued, "I hate you. I hope you die and have fun rotting in hell." Her daughter wrote, and I quote, "You brutally murdered a kind, sweet, loving person. My mother did not deserve this." On April 22, 2024, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The children are now in the care of Tracy's parents, where they are safe to grieve not only the loss of their mother, but also their 40-year-old Aunt Jennifer, who passed away 2 months before Tracy's horrific murder. Dericka Chavonne Lindsay was born on December 21, 2007, and grew up in Pensacola, Florida. At the age of 9, she was a student at St. John the Evangelist Catholic School and was described as a kind, outgoing, and affectionate child. She was always smiling, always polite, and loved to give out hugs to her friends' moms. But behind all that happy exterior was a child suffering at the hands of her adopted parents, Grace and James Smith. According to child welfare records, the conditions at the Smith home were very concerning. And in 2017, deputies had been called out to the house on more than one occasion. During one incident on June 26, 2017, Dericka and her younger sister ran away to a friend's house and were visibly distressed. A deputy who had arrived at the Smiths' home did an inspection and noted that the children were sleeping on a stained, brown mattress with no sheets or a pillow. They also found that the girls' room had no air conditioning, but it was available in Grace and James's room. The deputy who found the girls said that Dericka and her sister begged the officer not to take them back, but claimed they never gave a specific reason why. Despite all these warning signs, the children were returned to the Smiths. Less than 4 months later, on October 14th, a 911 call came in from the home.
We have a 10-year-old who is either faking it or is not breathing right now. She's had a knife, gonna cut her uncle and aunt, talking to them, being disrespectful. And I came over here to correct her, and she was fighting against us. And I had her sit in a chair. And she was bucking and stuff and didn't want to move. So when I released her, I told her to get up. She wouldn't get up.
When deputies arrived, they found 64-year-old Veronica Posey there. She told the officer that the Smiths called her to the home to help discipline the children. She then admitted that she sat on top of Dericka as punishment because she was allegedly misbehaving. Dericka stood just over 3 feet tall and weighed only 74 pounds. Whereas Posey weighed more than 300 pounds. By the time she got off, Dericka was already unconscious and sadly never recovered. Her ultimate cause of death was asphyxiation. Posey was then arrested and charged with first-degree murder and cruelty toward a child. Grace and James Smith were initially charged with child neglect, but on December 8, 2017, the charges were upgraded to aggravated manslaughter of a child, child neglect, and child abuse. In May of 2019, Grace was found guilty of aggravated murder of a child and aggravated child abuse and was sentenced to 20 years in state prison. James Smith ultimately pleaded no contest and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. As for Veronica Posey, on March 15, 2019, she was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.